The impossible defense captain, Elena Vasquez, stared at the tactical display with the kind of calm that comes from accepting the impossible. 47 Kethron warships surrounded her vessel like predators circling wounded prey. Each enemy ship was 3 times larger than the Meridian Explorer, bristling with plasma cannons capable of turning planets into cosmic dust. The Meridian Explorer was not a warship. She was a research vessel designed for deep space exploration and scientific discovery. Her hull bore the scars of their desperate escape from the quantum storm that had crippled their experimental drive system. What should have been humanity's greatest leap forward in space travel had instead stranded them in the most dangerous sector of known space. Status report, Elena commanded, her voice steady despite their dire circumstances. The bridge crew, a carefully selected team of Earth's brightest minds, worked frantically at their stations. Dr. James Chen, the mission's chief physicist, looked up from his console with sweat beading on his forehead. Captain, the quantum drive is completely unstable. The containment field is holding, barely, but any attempt to jump could tear us apart at the molecular level. His accent carried the weight of his homeland, but his English was precise and clear. Engineer Maria Santos wiped grease from her hands as she emerged from an access panel. The hull breaches in sections 7 and 12 are sealed, but we're running on emergency power. Life support will hold for maybe 6 hours. Her Spanish heritage showed in the musical rhythm of her words, but her message was grim. Communications Officer Alex Thompson, his British accent cutting through the tension, announced what everyone already knew. Captain, we're receiving a transmission from the Kethron fleet. They're demanding our immediate surrender. Elena closed her eyes for a moment, thinking of the families back on Earth who would never know what happened to them. The Meridian Explorer carried the hopes of humanity, the dream of exploring beyond their small corner of the galaxy. She opened her eyes and made a decision that would echo across the stars. Open a channel, Alex. The main screen flickered to life, revealing the intimidating form of Admiral Zoreth, Supreme Commander of the Kethron 7th Battle Fleet. The alien stood over 3 meters tall, his chitinous exoskeleton gleaming under the harsh lights of his command bridge. 4 arms ended in razor-sharp claws, and his mandibles clicked with barely contained aggression. Human vessel, Zoreth's voice resonated with the authority of a species that had conquered 12 star systems. You have trespassed in Kethron's space. Surrender immediately, and your deaths will be swift. Resist, and we will make examples of you for the rest of your pathetic species. Elena stood straight, every inch the starship captain, despite commanding a damaged research vessel. Admiral Zoreth, this is Captain Elena Vasquez of the Earth ship Meridian Explorer. We are not invaders. Our drive system malfunctioned, and we request safe passage to neutral space. The Admiral's mandibles spread in what passed for Kethron laughter. Request denied. The Kethron Empire does not negotiate with inferior species. You have 30 of your minutes to prepare for boarding. We will take your technology and add your ship to our fleet. I'm afraid that's not going to happen, Elena replied calmly. We didn't come all this way to become someone's prize. The connection terminated, and the bridge fell silent except for the hum of struggling life support systems. Elena looked round at her crew, these brilliant minds who had volunteered for humanity's most ambitious mission. Dr. Sarah Kim, the xenobiologist whose Korean precision had helped design their first contact protocols. Lieutenant Commander Hassan El-Rashid, their navigation officer, whose Egyptian heritage gave him an almost mystical connection to stellar cartography. Each face reflected the same determination she felt. "Well," Alina said with a slight smile, "I suppose we should get to work. James, tell me about this unstable quantum drive. Can we use it as a weapon?" Dr. Chen's eyes lit up with the kind of dangerous inspiration that had driven human innovation for millennia. "Captain, the quantum field fluctuations are creating micro-wormholes in space-time. If we could control the dispersal pattern, ... English, James, Maria interrupted with a grin. "Can we blow things up with it?" "Better," Chen replied. "We can make things disappear. Temporarily, maybe permanently. The mathematics are fascinating, but completely theoretical." "How long do we have before the Kethrons board us?" Alina asked Alex. 27 minutes, Captain. They're moving into position now." Alina made another decision that would have terrified any sane person. "Then we test some theories today. Maria, I need you to turn every piece of scientific equipment on this ship into a weapon. Sarah, access everything we know about Kethran psychology. Hassan, plot me an escape route that doesn't exist yet." The next 20 minutes transformed the Meridian Explorer from a research vessel into something the galaxy had never seen before. Maria Santos, with the ingenuity that had built Earth's first orbital stations, jury-rigged particle accelerators into makeshift cannons. The geological survey lasers became precision cutting tools. Even the mess hall's food processors were converted into projectile launchers. Dr. Kim worked with Alex Thompson to prepare something far more dangerous than any physical weapon: psychological warfare. The Kethrans were a proud warrior species, but they had never encountered humans before. They didn't understand that humans had a particular talent for making the impossible seem routine. When the first Kethron boarding pods launched toward their ship, Alina gave the order that would change galactic history. "James, activate the quantum field dispersal. Maria, all weapons free. Alex, transmit on all Kethron frequencies." What happened next defied every military doctrine in the known galaxy. The quantum field fluctuations, instead of tearing the Meridian Explorer apart, created a bubble of distorted space-time around the ship. The Kethron boarding pods simply vanished into micro-wormholes, not destroyed but displaced to random coordinates throughout the galaxy. The improvised weapons, cobbled together from scientific instruments, produced effects that confused even their operators. Particle beams designed to analyze stellar compositions instead created localized aurora effects that blinded Kethron sensors. Geological survey equipment meant to penetrate planet cores somehow interfered with alien navigation systems, but the most devastating weapon was Alex Thompson's voice, broadcast across all Kethron communication channels. In his crisp British accent, he began reciting human poetry, starting with Shakespeare and moving through centuries of literature. To the Kethrans, who communicated primarily through pheromone releases and mandible clicking, the complex rhythms, an emotional depth of human language was utterly alien and deeply disturbing. Admiral Zorith watched from his command bridge as impossible things happened around the small human vessel. His boarding pods disappeared into nothingness. His sensor arrays reported readings that violated the known laws of physics. And through it all, the haunting sound of human voices speaking words that somehow felt like weapons designed to assault. The very concept of rational thought. "Status report," Zorith demanded, his forearms gesticulating wildly. "Admiral, we've lost contact with all boarding parties," his tactical officer reported. "They appear to have been displaced beyond our sensor range." The human vessel is generating quantum field fluctuations that our science teams cannot explain. Impossible. One small ship cannot resist the might of 47 Kethron warships. But as Admiral Zorith watched, the impossible continued to unfold. The human ship, rather than running or hiding, began to advance toward his fleet. Its improvised weapons continued to produce effects that made no sense according to known science. More disturbing still was the realization that the humans seemed to be enjoying themselves. Elena Vasquez stood on her bridge, watching as her crew of scientists and explorers transformed into something the galaxy had never seen. Humans pushed to their creative limits. They laughed as they worked, finding joy in the impossible challenge. They called out suggestions to each other, building on ideas with the rapid-fire collaboration that had taken their species from caves to the stars in mere millennia. "Captain," Hassan called out from navigation, "I've plotted 17 different escape routes using the quantum field fluctuations. 3 of them might actually work." "Might?" Elena asked. "Well, 2 of them definitely violate causality, and 1 appears to create a temporal loop. But they're all mathematically valid." Elena grinned. "Pick the most interesting one and keep it in reserve. We're not running yet." The battle, if it could be called that, continued for another 10 minutes. The Kethrons, following thousands of years of military doctrine, attempted to overwhelm the human vessel with superior firepower. The humans, following no doctrine whatsoever, responded with creativity, improvisation, and what could only be described as controlled chaos. By the end of those 10 minutes, Admiral Zorith faced a situation no Kethron commander had ever encountered. A single damaged enemy vessel had not only resisted his entire fleet, but had somehow gained the tactical advantage through methods that defied military logic. The moment that changed everything came when Dr. Chen managed to stabilize one of the quantum field fluctuations long enough to create a microscopic black hole. It existed for exactly 0.003 seconds before evaporating into Hawking radiation, but during that brief moment, it consumed an entire Kethron torpedo and converted the mass directly into a light show visible from 3 star systems away. Admiral Zorith realized, with the kind of clarity that comes from facing the incomprehensible, that he was not fighting a military engagement. He was witnessing something far more dangerous: human ingenuity unleashed by desperation and driven by the absolute refusal to accept defeat. The retreat that shook the galaxy, the silence that followed. Dr. Chen's accidental black hole creation stretched across 47 Kethron warships like a physical weight. Admiral Zorith stood frozen on his command bridge, his 4 arms trembling as he processed what he had just witnessed. In 3 centuries of military service, conquering worlds and subjugating species across 12 star systems, he had never seen anything like it. "Admiral," his science officer whispered, mandibles clicking nervously, "preliminary analysis suggests the humans somehow created and controlled a micro-singularity. The energy readings are off our scales." Elena Vasquez watched the Kethron fleet's formation begin to waver. For the first time since the confrontation began, the enemy ships were pulling back slightly, their perfect attack formation dissolving into something resembling uncertainty. "Alex," she said quietly to her communications officer, "I think they're starting to understand they're not dealing with a normal military engagement." Thompson nodded, adjusting his headset. "Captain, I'm monitoring their communications. They're switching between 17 different dialects, and their pheromone emissions are indicating what I can only describe as existential confusion." Dr. Kim looked up from her xenobiology station, where she had been analyzing Kethron behavioral patterns. "Captain, I've been studying their formation changes. The Kethrons are hierarchical pack hunters. They understand overwhelming force and submission, but they have no framework for understanding creative chaos. We're essentially speaking a language they've never heard before. Maria Santos wiped her hands on a towel, emerging from another repair session. The quantum drive is still unstable, but I think I can channel some of the fluctuations into the communication array. Want to really mess with their heads. Alina considered the tactical situation. By every conventional measure, they were still hopelessly outgunned. But conventional measures seem to have little relevance to their current circumstances. Do it. And James, can you create another one of those micro-singularities? Dr. Chen looked up from his calculations, his face pale but determined. Captain, I honestly don't know how I created the first one. The quantum field interactions are beyond our current understanding of physics. But, he paused, then grinned with the expression of a scientist facing the ultimate experiment. I can probably do something even more interesting. Admiral Zorith received reports from across his fleet that painted a picture no military manual had prepared him for. The human vessel was now broadcasting on frequencies that shouldn't exist, creating interference patterns in space-time itself. Their jury-rigged weapons were producing effects that violated the fundamental laws of physics as the Kethron Science Academy understood them. More disturbing was the growing realization that the humans appeared to be making up their tactics as they went along. There was no doctrine, no predictable pattern that his tacticians could counter. Every response the Kethrons prepared was rendered obsolete by some new impossibility emerging from the damaged research vessel. Sir, his tactical officer reported, the humans are broadcasting again. This time, Elena's voice filled the Kethron communication channels. Admiral Zorith, this is Captain Vasquez. I want to make something clear to you and your fleet. We are not warriors. We are scientists, explorers, and engineers. We came to the stars, seeking knowledge and friendship, but we have discovered something important about ourselves today. The transmission paused, and in the silence, another quantum fluctuation created, a brief aurora effect that painted the nearby nebula in impossible colors. We have learned that when humans are pushed to the edge of extinction, we don't surrender. We innovate. We create solutions that shouldn't exist. We find ways to make the impossible happen through sheer bloody-minded determination. You wanted to make examples of us, Admiral. I'm afraid we're about to make an example of ourselves. Dr. Chen's voice joined the transmission. The quantum field fluctuations we're generating are creating a cascade effect throughout local space-time. In approximately 15 minutes, this entire region will experience what we're calling a creativity storm. Reality itself will become temporarily negotiable. Maria's laughter echoed across the channel, and we've got 17 different ways to make that our advantage instead of our problem. Admiral Zorith felt something he had never experienced in 3 centuries of conquest. Genuine fear, not of death, which was comprehensible, but of facing opponents who treated the laws of physics as suggestions and approached warfare as a creative exercise. The cascade effect Dr. Chen had predicted began to manifest across the battlefield. Space itself seemed to shimmer as quantum fluctuations spread outward from the Meridian Explorer. The Kethron ships found their instruments reading impossible values, their navigation systems reporting locations that didn't exist, and their weapons, targeting systems struggling to lock onto a vessel that appeared to be in several different places simultaneously. Hassan al-Rashid called out from navigation, his voice filled with wonder. Captain, The quantum storm is creating navigational opportunities I didn't know were possible. I can plot courses through dimensions that don't technically exist in our universe. The creativity storm is affecting our systems too, Dr. Kim reported. But instead of causing malfunctions, it's somehow optimizing our jury-rigged equipment. The particle accelerators are operating at 300% efficiency, and the food processors have somehow become precision plasma cannons. Alina realized they had passed a threshold that military history had never recorded. They were no longer fighting a battle in any conventional sense. They had somehow transformed warfare itself into an act of creative expression, and the Kethrans had no framework for understanding or countering it. The moment that broke the Kethran fleet came when Alex Thompson, inspired by the quantum storm's effect on human creativity, began broadcasting a live description of their tactical innovations. His crisp British accent narrated each impossible solution as it emerged, treating the entire engagement as a fascinating scientific experiment. And now Dr. Santos appears to have converted our waste recycling system into a device that fires concentrated irony at enemy vessels. The philosophical implications are staggering, really. How does one defend against an attack that makes your previous tactical decisions seem retrospectively foolish? Admiral Zorith listened to the broadcast with growing horror. The humans were not just defeating his fleet through impossible means. They were treating the entire engagement as entertainment. They laughed as they worked, celebrated each creative solution, and seemed to be having the time of their lives while facing extinction. The final straw came when Dr. Chen successfully created not one, but 7 microsingularities simultaneously, each one lasting exactly long enough to consume a Kethron missile and convert it into what he cheerfully described as weaponized mathematics. The resulting display of lights and impossible geometries was visible from the Kethron homeworld, 17 light-years away. All ships, Admiral Zorith commanded, his voice carrying the weight of military defeat for the first time in his career. Retreat to minimum safe distance. Maintain defensive positions only. The Kethron fleet pulled back, their perfect formation now a ragged circle around the impossible human vessel. For the first time in their military history, 47 Kethron warships were retreating from a single damaged enemy ship. Alina watched the tactical display as the enemy fleet withdrew. Status report. Are they really pulling back? Confirmed, Captain, Alex replied. Monitoring communications. They're maintaining position at extreme range, but they've ceased all offensive operations. I'm detecting frantic communications between their ships and what appears to be emergency consultations with their high command. Dr. Chen looked up from his instruments. Captain, the quantum storm is stabilizing, but I think we've created a permanent alt.